meeting of the Education and Neighborhoods Committee for Wednesday, September 8th, 2010. It is now 3:35, and we're going to commence. With me are the Honorable Council Members Hahn and Zine, and we are ready to begin with item number 1. Mr. Powell.
Yes. Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of a Miss Esther M. Cepeda Hatch to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2015. Ms. Cepeda Hatch's current term expired on June 30th, 2010.
Colleagues, I think what I'd like to do for the sake of efficiency is why don't we take items 1 and 2 together, bring both of the nominees up, and then we can ask them whatever questions we're going to ask them collectively.
Item number 2 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of a Miss Carlene Davis to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2015. Ms. Davis will fill the vacancy created by Ms. Michelle Sequeras? Sequeras. Muy bien.
All right. Ms. Davis and Ms. Cepeda Hatch, if you wouldn't mind coming forward to the microphones. Starting with Ms. Cepeda Hatch, if you would please introduce yourself and tell the committee a little bit about what your vision is for the neighborhood council movements, why you're interested in continuing to serve in this position, and then I think after you've both done that sort of introductory comment, I'm sure my colleagues and I will have some questions for you.
Thank
if we
you.
could begin with both of your introductory statements, please.
Okay. I'm Esther Cepeda Hatch, 2-year member on the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, 7-year member on the Harbor City Neighborhood Council. I'm pleased and honored to serve on both. I appreciate, the comments and the remarks I receive citywide as a commissioner. I've appreciated my time, serving the neighborhood council system, serving stakeholders in the city of LA. My vision for the neighborhood council movement is I just appreciate empowering people, empowering our communities, solving issues, and just making our communities a positive place.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Davis, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Carlene Davis. I am a native Angelino, a resident of the 8th District, and I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to serve. I was a part of the Empowerment Congress before the establishment of Dunn, and then I was also on one of the first Dunn established neighborhood councils, Empowerment Congress West. So I just see this as a continuation of service to the city that I so deeply love. I look forward to bringing strategic vision and leadership to the neighborhood council system, to supporting and building the capacity of neighborhood councils through my knowledge, my expertise, my relationships, and bringing all that so that we can truly have engaged, empowered citizens who are acting as stewards of the city.
Very good. Thank you both for being here, and thank you both for your interest in serving. Obviously, the neighborhood council movement is going through a transitional period now. The department, as well as neighborhood councils themselves, have been under significant pressure because of the budget and because of other challenges and constraints that we have right now. What do each of you see as being the most important challenges that we'll have to address collectively as a city in the coming years? And what lessons do you think we've learned in the 10 years of the neighborhood council movement so far about what we've done right with neighborhood empowerment and what can we be doing better?
Let's see here, where do I start in the beginning?
We'll go back and forth. How about if we did?
Okay,
So indeed, this is a challenging time, but actually the world is in transition. And so neighborhood councils are really experiencing what we're all experiencing from a global perspective in terms of our own state economy, our local economy. And so what I suspect is that for the time being, transition is just the state of being for us all. But being in a state of transition also provides an opportunity to think strategically and innovatively, to really become clear about your mission and your purpose, because you do not have the same latitude, the same sense of resources that you may have had before. It creates the perfect opportunity to engage in relationships and partnerships to help support and bolster the neighborhood council system, which maybe were not explored previously. So I see the transition as a time of opportunity, but it calls for the best in us in order for us to take advantage of that opportunity.
See, challenges that neighborhood councils face, and the challenges that we all face. There are some of the tough issues that we need to get through. Ethics training, code of civility, I feel are number one. Grievances, bylaws, and how we can help foster a better system. We're always open for improvement, for change. I would love to see the process evolve. I'd love to see board members be enthusiastic about complying with ethics training. You know, I mean, I show that enthusiasm in my own neighborhood council, and just recently did we become 100% compliant.
Yeah.
And this is the neighborhood council that's been around for 8 years now.
Yeah.
So I'd love to share that with other neighborhood councils. I think that is vital to move forward.
And definitely there is a tension and a balance that has to be addressed, of course, and relating to something like the ethics training and words like compliance, but which are a part of the system. And so the question is, again, I think in the absence of having clarity about who you are and what it is you want to accomplish, it's just easier for you to say no to things first. And I think that it's incumbent upon commissioners as leaders to help set the tone and lead by example, and to engage in active listening, but to also have the courage to speak to what is needed and what is right.
Under any scenario, Dunn is going to be reduced in its ability to provide support for neighborhood councils and to provide oversight of neighborhood councils because of reductions in staff that have happened over the course of several years. We've preserved Dunn for the time being as a standalone department, and but it is significantly reduced in its capacity. So what would each of you see as being the appropriate role of Bonk and perhaps other components of the neighborhood council movement in absorbing some of the oversight and support and peer review, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, roles that Dunn might have been providing under more flush budget times?
Well, I would like to see the commission have a more authoritative role. I would like the commission to have the ability, the authority, the right to issue involuntary decertification of neighborhood councils. I would like to see the commission have the right to freeze the funds of neighborhood councils. And in the areas of when neighborhood councils have been found to have violated laws, when neighborhood councils are not adhering to the policies set forth by the commission, and when they are not adhering to the rules and regulations set forth by the department.
So what I hear the commissioner saying, which is very important, is that accountability has to be embedded into the system somehow. And so it is so either by policy, policy will be needed to ensure that there's accountability, but then there's the other side, and that is the training and the capacity building to assume ownership for that accountability. And with 91 councils, all at varying levels of capacity, readiness, level of resources, just simply from the communities where they are. So some neighborhood councils will need more support. And part of the commission's role, as I see it, so I can't speak to the authority, I'm not even there yet. So prior to that, part of the commission's role really will be around identifying resources to support the councils in building the capacity to assume accountability, so that in those areas, because policy will never cover everything. Policy will never cover every single incident that you could never, ever foresee. And so that's where the leadership is needed to create behaviors in the absence of a policy that might dictate behavior.
Particularly when you have 91
Exactly.
semi-autonomous governmental entities, that each one reflecting the different constituencies that they represent.
And you could not come up with enough policies to manage that into perfection.
We've tried.
Ms. Hunt?
Thank you. Well, thank you to both of you wonderful women for agreeing to serve on this very important commission. I'm a big fan of Esther Cepeda's, and I am here to wholeheartedly support your reappointment, and you as well. You two have an interesting perspective. I mean, you're both members of neighborhood councils as well as members of the commission. Are there other commissioners that are on, how many?
I'm not on a council.
Oh, you're not?
I'm
Okay,
on a
not
council.
now, but you were. Is there another commissioner currently on a
Yes,
neighborhood council?
Our president, Al Abrams.
Oh, okay.
On his neighborhood council.
Okay.
And, which is the other one? Oh, Linda Lux on the
Oh,
Venice-
that's right, that's
Linda Lux
right.
on the Venice neighborhood.
That's right.
There
So
are three of us.
that's an important perspective, I
Yes.
think. Now, you know, as you said, we're in changing times right now, and I remember in the beginning, the commission agendas were completely filled up with certifying neighborhood councils, and then I believe the next round was sitting in over the disputes in the elections. That was that's a big part of what this committee did before you were here, Paul, was we sat hearing, dispute after dispute after dispute, and we tried to put into place policies to handle those grievances. I was going to ask you both how you felt the elections are going under the city clerk. And we've heard some complaints in this committee, and some are wanting to take them back themselves. But it was something that we tried to do to make it a little more uniform, and also to kind of take the burden off of neighborhood councils. Again, they're made up of volunteers, and we felt the elections were just, absorbing huge number of hours for these volunteers. How do you think the elections are going under the city clerk?
I really did appreciate the way the elections were handled by the city clerk. They were top-notch, but at a large dollar amount. $22,222 per NC. That's steep. That money would have been better spent on outreach. Now, as a commissioner on the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, prior to this, I also sat on the Neighborhood Council Review Commission, and we voted to let the city clerk handle the elections. But part of that, the outreach component was with that. Had we known that the outreach component would have been removed because of a budget deficit that we had no idea was coming, I don't believe the vote would have gone that way. I believe that we wouldn't have recommended, to
Right.
remove the elections from the NCs and place them with the city clerk.
Well, can't there be a hybrid, though? I mean, sometimes I love my neighborhood councils, but every one of them come with $50,000 a year. I mean, that's certainly money that could go towards outreach
Right.
from an individual neighborhood council.
My own NC spent $700 on a neighborhood council election. So see, I mean, the amount of money being spent, I'm sure varies per neighborhood council.
Right.
But it's across the board on my own NC, they'd rather see it back in the hands of the NCs. But I understand, I mean, it's varied out there.
Right, right. Well, that's interesting. Maybe the jury's still out on the elections.
Right.
The other big question for me, of course, is the future of the department. And as you know, the mayor brought forward a ill-thought-out, ill-conceived proposal to merge with CDD, which this committee promptly rejected, even though the messenger delivered it in such a genteel way. But I certainly appreciated Paul's leadership in really seeing that it was probably a little premature to get rid of this department. By the way, Dennis and I helped create this department in 1997.
You are the mother.
You are the father.
Thank you. Now the news is broken.
An image I'm not going to be able to shake.
Yeah.
Very good.
Where was I going with that question?
Mother and
The
father.
department.
Oh, right. And it was the first time we'd ever created a department in the city in a very long time. And the reason was we really felt that the Neighborhood Council Network deserved to have a standalone department which existed to empower neighborhood councils. As Councilmember Kerkoin said, it looks like it's going to be diminished in some sort. But I want to ask both of you two, do you feel like it should be a standalone department, even in tough budget times? Is this a department worth saving, worth restructuring, and worth hanging on to as a standalone department? And why?
I say yes, because community engagement work, community building work is labor intensive, and it does require focus and intention if you really want it to work well. So what needs to happen is that the department and the councils, as they go into a new strategic direction, need to find a way to be able to articulate their value both in quantitative terms and in qualitative terms, so that the policymakers, the decision makers, and the residents can clearly understand the value of neighborhood councils. So I think right now it's nebulous. And when it's nebulous, it's really easy to default to budget efficiencies. So the task ahead for the department is to be able to clearly articulate and demonstrate its value. But yes, when you do this work, it takes intention, it takes focus, and it takes staffing. Now, what may need to happen is to look and do an assessment to determine whether or not the current staffing that you have now meets the needs of where the department and the neighborhood councils have to go. But that's also a process because we don't know what that is right now. So assessment still needs to be on the table, but whether or not that support is still needed, yes, I believe that it.
Esther?
Save the department.
Yeah.
I want to see the department as a standalone department
Right.
to further empower neighborhood councils.
Right.
I think by consolidating the department, as was originally planned, would just bring morale way down in the neighborhood council system. And as a commission, we can help. You know, we're there to help. We're there to assist the department, to assist the city attorney, to assist taxpayer dollars and so forth. I mean, I believe that we need the department.
Here's my last thing, and then I'll quit. Here's what I also am always wanting I think the commission should be more proactive in terms of recommending policy or shaping this department. Bring it back to us. Let us look because this is where it policy happens. This is where legislation happens. This is where charter changes happen. And I know we had the review commission, but I've always wanted your commission to stay proactive. And if you feel like there's things that can be fixed or tweaked or changed, bring it back to this committee because we can make it happen legislatively. I also have always believed that your commission should also really be the advocates for our neighborhood councils with other departments. Like, I'd like to see your commission take on the DWP commission or the Rec and Parks commission when they're badly behaving towards neighborhood councils. I really do. I've always wanted general managers to do that with each other, but that's never happened, and I'm not advocating a food fight, but I honestly feel like it's a network of citizen commissions in this city. That's what we believe this government works well. We have elected officials, we have the constituents, we have departments, but we have this layer of citizen commissions. And I really would love to see you challenge other commissions when you feel like our neighborhood councils are not being respected, are not being given the dignity or the ability to weigh in on major issues. And I've just singled out DWP and Recreation Parks, but I think that could be true for a number planning, building and safety. Anyway, it's a thought. If you don't have anything to do on your next commission agenda, take on another department. I think that is perfectly acceptable in the city, and I think that's how we hold each other accountable. And it's never really happened, and I think that could be a role that you play with other commissions. We need real advocates for neighborhood councils. It's sort of like we're having a ratepayer advocate for ratepayers, but you know what? Our neighborhood councils consistently, in my opinion, need an advocate. They are still feeling many times like they're going up against, deaf ears in the city. So it would be an interesting role for you to play.
Well, another advocacy point is, and it speaks a little bit to consolidation, because some of the assumptions around consolidation generally are that there's a better use of resources, better leveraging of resources. So some of that advocacy also consists of identifying where there are existing city resources that can be used to help support the growth and development of neighborhood councils, and trying to figure out those areas in which there might be some either purpose or mission alignment, right? Mm-hmm. So city departments write grants for city departments all of the time. It happens. They're and across and even DOT. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason why similar alliances could not be
particularly
made.
On this ratepayer advocate issue. I mean, we're holding hearings around the city to get neighborhood council input. I would suggest maybe a joint commission meeting between your commission and DWP, specifically on the item of ratepayer advocate, and hold it together. I think it would be a very powerful meeting in the city to have both these commissions listening to the people on how they want to see the future of DWP, particularly in regard to this ratepayer advocate.
Thank you. Mr. Zine.
I'd like to come to that meeting.
Thank you.
Let's have it seen from Joe.
The concern I have is lack of authority or lack of power with the commission. You look at the police commission, set policy for the police department, the fire commission, Department of Transportation, all these commissions, and what I see lacking with the Neighborhood Council Commission, maybe they're not sure about the accountability, responsibility to take hold of that. And we're the commission. You mentioned the issue of freezing funds, give more power to the commission. It's important. We know there's been scandals. We know people have absconded with money, equipment. I asked about the computers, the cameras, thousands of dollars worth of merchandise somehow lost. Somebody's responsible for that. And when you have the turnover during elections, well, here's a nice camera, and nobody's going to know. We never trace it back. So I hold the department responsible, but the commission responsible, and those neighborhood council folks who are all volunteers, no one's going to be knocking on their door. There's 91. There's all these people involved. So I would say the commission needs to somehow assert itself to say, we are a commission established by charter. We have the governance. We have the responsibility. And if someone challenges it, then let them challenge it, and the city attorney can say, no, someone's responsible, someone has control. When the police officers wanted to go from a 38 to a 9mm, it was the police commission that approved it. They can't arbitrarily change those weapons or tools of the trade without the police commission's approval, which is the same thing that you folks can do. Just, we're the commission, we're going to do it. And if they come screaming at us, we'll say the commission's responsible. Because I look at downsizing the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, but improving and strengthening the commission's accountability. And if they had an executive director, as we have with the police commission, executive director is the liaison to the council, and they run the organization. The chief of police has to answer to the commission. The neighborhood councils would have to answer to the commissions. So I would be very much in favor of strengthening the commission, because I think it's important to do that for accountability, responsibility. And while you have 91 neighborhoods, I have 6 in my district, and Tarzana, which Mr. Abrams is a member of, along with his wife. I don't have any problem in Tarzana. Everybody's mature. Everybody gets along well. It's smooth as can be. I go to meetings here and there, but it's very orderly in a very professional manner. And I've heard other parts of the city, where you talk about civility, we used to have a rabbi, human relations, that would have to go instruct people on civility. When you come to council as a council member, we don't get a class on how to be a council member. When you're a state legislature, you don't get a class on how to be a state legislature. You don't go to college for that. You learn. And when you have this opportunity to fall within the fold, you would think that civility wouldn't even have to be a discussion item. It would just be, you're part of that group. We have neighborhoods that have homeowners organizations. They work very successful without city intervention, without city money. But I would say whatever you folks in a commission want to do, you're not going to get squawk from me, and probably my colleagues would say, hey, this is good, because someone's going to have to take hold. The Department of Neighborhood Empowerment doesn't have the resources.
Right.
They don't have the time to go throughout this vast city, 427 square miles. I mean, it's just physically impossible. So I would say the commission really, to enhance that. The other thing I'm concerned with is apathy. We've got neighborhoods that are apathetic. We've got elections that, as you mentioned, cost a lot of money with the city clerk. The city clerk runs elections in a very sophisticated, professional manner. They need to, because of the whole election process with elected officials. And that's the same standard they use. They use a standard for everything. It's very cumbersome. It's very time-consuming. It's very, very expensive. But when you look at when Ms. Hahn and I were on the Charter Commission and we discussed neighborhood councils, and I remember that term many times, cookie cutter. We don't want the cookie cutter. Harbor is different than the Valley. The West Side's different from the East Side. And sometimes you have language barriers. You have different challenges in different communities. Tailor it to that instead of having this. And I can see how the city clerk's office would go into a minority community where English is not spoken, and how are they going to struggle through that? It's something that has to be tailored to the particular community, the 91 neighborhood councils, however it works for them. They get $45,000. It used to be 50, now it's 45. Another thing I was concerned about is there was so much clamor about, we want our money, we want our money, we want our money. You know, we're talking about layoffs and furloughs and retirements. I don't know how much longer we can continue with the $45,000. And when I look at how some of that money is being spent, the commission can say, if you want to have bags, or you want to have pencils, you want to have pens, maybe the commission could coordinate it in a citywide, because the more you buy, the cheaper the price. But I go to different neighborhood councils, and they're passing out, little logo items, which is nice, but how much are they paying for those logo items? Where if we bought it in bulk with the individual stamp of that particular neighborhood council, you could probably save money. I'm one of those frugal guys. I shop coupons. I save money. So I'm just thinking that's another avenue that we could have the commission just like shake it up. We're the commission, and we're gaining responsibility, control, and we as the council are empowering, we as a committee are empowering you folks to forward with that, because you get no compensation. Right. Sometimes you get criticized. Sometimes you get ridiculed, and you say, what the hell am I doing this for? What satisfaction is there? It's not like you can get a great pension. You're not going to be able to go to Hawaii on the expense of the city, because it just doesn't happen. So you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart for the community, and I respect and appreciate that. The conflicts, where you've got conflicts, I would say, instead of having the neighborhood council, maybe they can't resolve it themselves, the commission have maybe a grievance process. If we don't get along in council, you know, I love Paul, he's a great guy. Jan is on, I'm knowing these folks. We don't all agree on everything, but it's done in a very civil manner. And I think
Sometimes.
well, except for you, Miss Hahn, sometimes Miss Hahn. I'm just kidding you. But, you know, but one of the things that we need to somehow do is have the commission, I think, take a stronger hold, because I don't know what the commissioners do when they're not having a commission meeting, but if they go to some of the neighborhood council meetings where they're having a meeting, hey, I'm a commissioner, I'm here, police commissioners go to different stations. And I keep on requesting to police commissioners, you should have the same kind of power that the police commission has, because they're responsible for public safety. You're responsible for the whole neighborhood of the city of Los Angeles.
But don't give guns to the neighborhood council.
No.
Well, we don't have to have guns. We can have civility. And but I like your aspect of freezing funds, give power to the commission. And if there's an issue that is of conflict, some neighborhood council not doing what they need to do, the commission comes in and say, you know what, we're going to take over. We're going to do what we need to do because you folks aren't handling it. Because once it gets into the district attorney and court prosecution paper, then it starts to dilute the whole process. Then people say,
What
do we
would it
really
take
need
to
it?
make that happen? What would it take to give you that kind of?
I don't know if you don't have it now.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I think it's simple.
Okay.
I don't know, does the charter prohibit that?
Yeah, I don't think it does.
Or it's silent?
There is precedence by ordinance.
Then we could set an ordinance. Paul Kokorian, my colleague here, the chairperson of this committee, is very committed to it. I know, very painstaking to make sure it's done
The
right.
charter's silent on that.
And if it's silent, I would assert that.
Can't manage day-to-day, but there is precedence by ordinance.
Well, not managed day-to-day, but there's got to be some process where the commission has some authority to do something, because I don't know if you're going to get 105 neighborhood council. We probably have maxed out at 91. Maybe you may get a couple more, but I think we're probably maxed out. So that whole process of going through that ordeal, and now you got the elections come through. And I'm very much in favor of, if you're going to have an election in your particular neighborhood, then an adjoining neighborhood council representatives come in and run that election, just so that, you know, it's all done without the city clerk. And no disrespect to the city clerk,
Right.
but we can save a lot of that money. And we talk about outreach when we do newspaper ads, and we spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars in newspaper ads, and it doesn't generate a lot of interest. Because some of these neighborhood councils, I went to a couple of the elections, the election night, and I looked at the ballots, and they would have like one name. And they said, well, as long as that person votes for themselves, they're in. I said, well, where's the competition? Well, in many of the neighborhood counties, there was no competition. And some of the areas were blank. No one ran for those seats. Yeah, we're spending thousands of dollars on bringing folks in, which I think can be done a lot simpler, a lot smoother. And again, it wasn't supposed to be cookie cutter. So I respect what you're doing. I think just take the bull by the horn and say, we're the commission. You got Al, who's a great man, who knows how to get things done. He's been there a while. And just do it. And if someone challenges you, then it comes to this committee, and we then sort it through. But right now, it's kind of like you're in that limbo state. And I think you just take it away from that to give you that power. And I think it would enhance your authority at the same time with the department, as I see being downsized just because of lack of resources. And the money's not going to get any better in the next couple of years. It just seems it's going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. So but I wish you both well. I respect the fact you're doing this, spending the time, the energy. Obviously, you're going to get confirmed here. When you face the full council, I'm sure you'll get confirmed. And then you got the task at hand to deal with Mr. Weiss and people like him. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
very much.
Okay.
But, you know, just so I can add.
Sure.
Grievances are one of the items that we're going to be tackling before the end of this year. It's definitely
Grievances, yeah.
yeah, grievances, bylaws,
Yeah.
the ethics training, code of civility. I'm sure there's a few others. I have my priorities.
Eight of them?
Five here. Well, table of contents for bylaws and grievances and complaints.
The other thing I'd like you maybe to explore with the commission is, you know, why the community impact statement doesn't seem to be working. It seemed like a good idea, but it just has not worked. And maybe the commission could take that up as a, just kind of a exploring, doing a little research and study and find out why it doesn't work. I've always felt like it was going to be the easiest way for neighborhood councils to communicate with us. I mean, have it written on our agendas, so it'd be right there in front of
But it
us.
didn't happen.
And it just has never happened. So maybe find out
Okay.
why it's not working. Can we make it better? Can we make it different? I still feel like the communication from neighborhood councils to the city council is lacking. Because it was always supposed to have a vehicle for neighborhood councils to communicate without having to come downtown, because that was one of the big complaints during the charter, was a lot of people live far away. It took a big effort to come down to city council, parking, money, then you get 3 minutes, and you face council members that aren't paying attention. I mean, that was the whole complaint. So we tried to write in this policy where they could communicate with us without having to come downtown, and it just is not, it's not relevant for some reason. I'm not really sure why. So maybe that would be something the commission could.
And I would also suggest
take on.
use the mayor's office to assist, because oftentimes they're there as a resource, and people forget about using it. You know, you go to the Department of Empowerment, but what about the mayor's office? They've got 2 representatives that are here, and they're obviously very receptive to helping out.
Thank you.
So just related to that, I guess, let me ask you a very broad question, and then I'd like to ask each of you to offer whatever closing comments you might have. What do each of you see as the purpose for having neighborhood councils? What is the mission of neighborhood councils in the governance of this city? So if you could each just comment on that question and then offer your closing comments.
See, as far as vision of neighborhood councils, you know, when I first got involved with neighborhood councils, it was because I wanted to follow in my late father's footsteps. He helped found the Harbor City Neighborhood Council, and he sat on that council for about 6 months before he passed. It was a strong value that he gave me, was to give something back to your community. And so when I ran for his seat, and I was successful at winning that seat, I was very, very proud of myself, and I know he would have been too. I felt that just helping people, helping them address local issues, a place for people to come gather, a spot at the table for everyone, just was a great idea. And if we could market and outreach that much more, because it's that simple. It's that simple. Just come together, bring your local issues, let's help. Let's do something. Empowering people. That's my vision for neighborhood councils, to continue to do that, to expand on that. And to this day, the reason why I do this, continue to do this, free of charge, is for my 5-year-old son. I'm teaching him to give something back to his community. I take him to a board meeting once a month. He's 5, so he doesn't tolerate a whole lot, but he's learning. He's learning. He now can sit through a whole meeting. And I just want to be able to give something back.
That's great.
And he's teaching lessons in civility.
Exactly.
Then you need to
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you.
So the challenge around the vision of neighborhood councils, well, it's twofold. So one, neighborhood councils are a vehicle for civic engagement, for community connectedness. It's a way to stabilize communities, to create relationships and connections. It's a way to connect residents to the city process. And so the neighborhood councils could do that, and there would be qualitative value in that happening. So the challenge now becomes, how do you translate that qualitative value so that decision makers and policymakers understand that value, when oftentimes value is defined in quantitative terms. So there are other vehicles. There are block clubs. There are homeowner associations, but there are homeowner associations in neighborhoods where there are also renters. And so in those neighborhoods where homeowner associations dominate and they tend to be higher class, then what happens is there are inequities created. So the other vehicle that I see for the potential of neighborhood councils is to create an equity of connectedness and service, an opportunity to serve in the community, and to make Los Angeles a stronger place, right? Because without it, the fabric can wear down. And again, as I said, in the environment, we're being assaulted from all kinds of places. And so what it is going to take, it's going to take us as neighbors and residents working together and staying strong amidst some very challenging times. So my vision is that neighborhood councils can serve as one vehicle to create a strong kind of quilt that doesn't have a lot of holes in it in the community. But it's going to be very, very important because this is a department and neighborhood councils are under siege. And so we definitely will have to define and be clear about our value and work towards our value.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both very much. We have one card on items 1 and 2. That is Al Abrams. Mr. Abrams, if you could take 2 minutes, please.
It is time for positive comments, Mr. Abrams.
Good afternoon. Al Abrams, President of the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you today. Now you see why we have the best commission in the city of Los Angeles. We get both the passion and the intelligence. And so I'm here to ask you to issue forth a positive recommendation on both of these excellent candidates. We have one commissioner who has served ably for 2 years, and Ms. Cepeda Hatch has great instincts and great common sense, and plus her experience on the ground in Harbor City in neighborhood council. So I depend a lot on getting that input from her when we have a policy issue to discuss, debate, and vote on. And you can also see with Ms. Davis's education and intelligence and background, I'm not going to hold it against her as a Stanford dad that she got her undergraduate from Berkeley. But she made it up by going to University of Texas for her postgraduate degree. So we'll say hook 'em horns, Carly. So I look forward to having both of these extraordinary women on the commission. So I'm here to say that. But also I want to comment on the issue that Councilman, you brought up and was Ms. Cepeda Hatch brought up, which is the enforcement powers of this commission. We are very happy and willing to take on the hard job of doing what it takes to protect the taxpayers' money. That's our first and primary focus. When we debate a policy, it's are we doing the job that the charter, that the city council and the mayor and the taxpayers expect of us? And, the precedent has been set. As you know, the powers to certify and decertify do not come from the charter. They came from ordinance of the city council. So legal precedence is there. We don't have to go necessarily. May I have a few more moments? We don't have to go necessarily to a charter change. That's a big deal. But if you should so feel, the deadline for such a charter change is still within the works for the March election. And the two tools, just those two tools that the commissioner brought up, which is one, to allow in those rare chances or rare occasions that the commission feels they want to initiate involuntary decertification, and also to freeze funds. The reason it's good for us to be able to have those tools in the toolkit is because the department doesn't have the same immunity that we have. We don't have the pressures that they often have to suffer through, political pressures from neighborhood council people. We can look very objectively at a situation and often feel frustrated that we can't act, that we can't enforce. So I welcome her comments, and I welcome your comments also, Councilman Zine, on that. And I'm here to answer any questions, but I think you've got two great candidates in front of you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Abrams.
Yeah.
I'm going to propose that this committee, on item number 1, recommend approval of the reappointment of Ms. Esther Cepeda Hatch to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners.
Second.
Without objection, that's the unanimous finding of this committee. And on item number 2, I would propose that the committee recommend approval of the appointment of Ms. Carleen Davis to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners.
Second.
Second.
With
Third.
no objection, that is unanimous as well. Congratulations to
Congratulations.
both of you on this step, and we look forward to seeing you both in council. Thank you very much. That brings us to general public comment. We have one card, and that is Mr. Noel Weiss. Mr. Weiss.
Good afternoon. I was going to say good evening. Mr. Zine notwithstanding, I want to advocate. Huh?
I would say I'm sitting.
Okay, notwithstanding. What we're talking about, I want to advocate for a little bit of a charter change. We're talking about a ratepayer advocate last night. I think there's going to be a lot of turnout, positive turnout for citizen empowerment in the March election. These issues, city attorney has been pretty much silent. I don't think city attorney served this committee or the people well at all when it comes to trying to define what the role of the commission is, what the powers of the council is relative to the commission, the budgeting issues. I still say that we're talking about 2 years in advance budgeting and appropriations, but putting all that aside, a couple of tweakings, if you will, of the charter, which basically gives the commission the right to do some police commission type management directives, I think would go a long way. And you have until early November in order to be able to do it. I think if you went to the neighborhood councils, and you're going to have, I think, a hearing on Sunday, but this should be a kind of a citywide thing too. We're kind of like what Rules and what Jan Perry's committee, the Energy and Efficiency Committee, is doing. Go around the city and basically challenge neighborhood councils. This is a really, really critical time in the history of the city because you're losing an institutional memory, which is not a bad thing, because the people that are there, I think, can rise to the occasion. But by the same token, you're in a position where the neighborhood councils can latch on to that institutional memory. They can take some of their $45,000 and they can hire these people as consultants and build up a degree of institutional memory that will be able to advise the committees of the city council, because you guys can't do it. You don't have enough time. You don't have the staffs. You just 1 hour or a couple hours a month in committee hearings. You just can't do it. You need to have the neighborhood councils, which I think was one of the intentions, is to advise the city council in a meaningful way on policy. Well, that's not happening because, I mean, even today, what was it, that school, in Garcetti's district, okay, you talked about a working group. Did anybody in the city council stand up and say, oh, by the way, we should have neighborhood councils included in that working group? Nobody said a word. So if we're talking about empowering neighborhood councils, seriously, it starts, I mean, respectfully, look in the mirror a little bit too, because you need to have this in the foremost of your mind. And I talked to those people afterwards and I said, how many neighborhood councils are in your area? 3. You know, so, I mean, all I'm saying is a couple of charter changes or discussion of charter changes, get it on the ballot, I think, and get an opinion from the city attorney in writing for a change, and maybe we can begin to move the process forward in a way that was originally intended by the founders.
Thank you.
And that's a good point. In fact, I
a
usually
week from Sunday.
always say include neighborhood councils. That's one of the things I say usually when we do something. But it would be nice at this point. I guess for me at this point, I would have thought that that would be automatic, and that ought to just be policy for us when there's a working group in the city, whether it's on medical marijuana, on childcare, on, you know, the alarm, you know, the police response to burglar alarms. And whenever there's a working group in the city, it ought to be policy that neighborhood councils are included. I wish we shouldn't have to say that anymore.
But you need to, and it needs to be a friendly amendment, and it needs to be incorporated in, because that communicates to the people that you care. And it's not just words, it's really, you know, positive, proactive comment.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned.
Woohoo!
Thank you, Dennis. Very good comments.